you don't get lost in the middle, which you won't if you followed every class until now. All right, I'm recording locally. Let me close chat here. All right. Hello. Sorry guys for the delay. We're starting at 7:05. Websites are back up. We're on projects.100xdevs.com. There are two Paytm projects here, the old one and the new one. I'd urge you to open this new one. This is what we'll be following today, even though a lot of it is going to be very hands-on, ad hoc, and we won't be following the slides too much. We'll be writing code ourselves. You can pick and choose if you want to write code. If you want to, we'll sort of be moving fast. So if you get stuck in a bug, you'll have to resolve it yourself. But we'll try our best to get everyone along and go from there. Just want to make sure, are you guys in the mood of coding today? Give me a yes or a no. Or you just want architecture coding? Oh, yeah, good to go. Alrighty. It's a sweet combination of yes and no. We'll do a poll and then we'll start. Options. Yes. No. Right. Because the architecture, this is also super interesting. So we can spend a lot of time there as well. If you want to really build Paytm, very similar to building an exchange, the architecture itself can take an hour. But we'll see. Do you guys want to code today? Yes or no? And the other option is if we don't code, is when we do a bunch of architecture. Where's my iPad now? Okay, very nuanced, very similar. All right. So we'll spend the first, 30 minutes doing a bunch of, this basically. So this is someone in the cohort, very active. And he suggested that if you're building a project, please share all of these steps one by one as to where to start, how do you design UI, UX, low-level design, high-level design, ER diagrams. We'll skip a few of these things. But I've pretty much made slides for all of them so that we try to go through 3 steps one by one. Oh my God, my machine is stuck. There we go. All right. Just spam the hand raise section in case you guys cannot see me. So we'll discuss all of these steps for building something like Paytm. We're building a slightly more vast Paytm, which means it has merchants, it has users. So, the architecture will be a little overwhelming of sorts. It will finally look something like this. Oh my God, my machine is not cooperating, is it? Let me disconnect this. Let me reshare my screen. Stop
recording. Stopped.
Oh, why did I do that? All right, screen share.
Recording in progress.
I guess. So Delhi is suddenly hot. I don't have an AC here, so my machine is heating up, so I cannot or should not connect an extended display. So I'm just moving everything here, including the recording, which seems like it's already here. All right. So share screen. All right. Sorry about that. Now I have to make things close tabs to the right. All right. Sorry about that. Paytm project present on app.100xdevs.com. Sorry, projects.100xdevs.com. If at any point you're not able to see me because my machine is hanging, just spam hand raise and I'll understand something's up. All right. Why are you guys spamming hand raise right now? Never mind. Yeah, there is a spam. All right. What's up, guys? Can you guys see me? Can you guys hear me? Hello. Are you good to go? Oh. Camera. A few people said camera. Good. Yes. All right. Stop share. Reshare. Make sure the mic is right. Seems like it's the right one. All right. Cool, guys. Let's get right into it. We'll be going through all of these steps for building something like Paytm. We're building a slightly vast version of Paytm. By vast, I mean, there'll be a few things to cover. Which is, not really needed in a simple Paytm app like we've built until now. Let's jump to point number 2, which why is it still the same? Someone is getting fired. Just want to make sure. Point number 2. Sorry guys, technical difficulties today. It was a long planning day today. Everything happened very quickly. Plus my machine isn't cooperating. So bear with me for 1 second. The slides are a little messed up. Let me fix that really quickly. Firebase. No one's getting fired. I was kidding. Gives you a sneak peek into how we build slides. Sorry about that. database. I think I know what's up. PTM. There you go. The first slide is 1, second is 2, 3, 4. Okay, that looks good. I just need to delete the first one, I guess. All right. Refresh. Slide number 2 looks right. All right, cool guys. If you want, feel free to refresh. I'll move on to the next slide. There are 10 slides now. All right. Slide number 2, feature planning, which is, one of the things that were mentioned here. I guess before that, let me take you through all the points that this guy mentioned. Where to start feature planning? This generally depends on the product. If you're building Paytm, you will have some PM team that will tell you, okay, yeah, these are the first set of features that you need to build. Generally, when you're just starting an application like we are today, Paytm, the founding team just decides, okay, bro, this is what we need to get out on day one, and you build that. Eventually, as the team becomes really big, is when, you get product managers who talk to customers, who look at analytics and figure out what is the next feature to build. And they tell, the dev team to do that. This happens in big companies. In smaller companies, it's very ad hoc. Engineers decide what to do. A lot of times CEO decide what to do. No tickets, no Jira, nothing like that. Design UI, UX. UX first principles, unless you have a design team, you'll think, Acha, how would a Paytm user, what kind of pages would they need? And you build that unless you have a UI UX team. Same for UI. One thing I've seen a lot in UI is when a startup is starting up, they'll just copy the competitor. If you're building an exchange, you'll copy Coinbase. If you're building a Paytm like app, you'll just copy Paytm's UI to kick things off. Eventually, you'll hire your own designers. High level design, the things to decide are, who is your auth provider? Are you doing authentication in-house? Are you using Clerk? Are you using Firebase auth? This is one thing, you need to decide upfront, because this causes a lot of havoc later on when you think of moving from one provider to another. Generally, you should do this in-house. By in-house, I mean Nextauth is great for Next.js. Database. This is interesting. Again, something very hard to migrate from time to time. Postgres mostly is the popular choice, probably something you want to go with for a big application. Backend stack, frontend stack, probably going to be next for most applications today, but you can decide. For us, it's going to be Next plus Express. We'll look at this when we reach the architecture. Same for frontend, standard Next.js. If you're building a mono repo, how would you structure your application? Would Recoil stuff be in a separate module? Would database Prisma stuff would be in a separate module? Things like these. And where are you going to deploy? Is it going to be AWS? Is it going to be GCP? Things like these. For us, it'll probably be AWS. Low-level design. What does the database finally look like? Schema. What post requests are you going to support? What get requests are you going to support? It's a good idea to write all of these down before you start coding. Doesn't hurt if you don't write them down as well. You'll mostly be fine, especially when you're starting a project. When you're in a big company and adding something, then a lot of times you have to write design docs and do a bunch of things. Today we won't do any of that. And front-end components. Do you want to really decide, this is our UI, so we have front-end component number 1, component number 2. Pick and choose if you want to do it. Most startups don't do it. Companies probably do it. ER design, we can build one today. Companies do. Microsoft will ask you to build one. Startups won't. How do you think about features? This is a good question. Usually come from product, as in there's a product team, a product manager who's talking to users and figuring it out. And if you're a founder, then a lot of times it just comes from a CEO. And how much complexity is needed depends on the size of the company. If you want to move fast, it'll be a very bad code, slightly complex, but get the code out as soon as possible. If it's a big company, it will be as simplified as possible, as broken down as possible, as abstracted as possible, even if the deployment happens after 2 weeks. That's a brief of how people decide/design. Unless you're joining a very big company, all of this doesn't matter. This matters if you're joining a Series A, Series B plus company. When these companies begin to move to practices like these. Before that, everything is pretty ad hoc. This is what we're building today. This is the architecture of Paytm we'll build. There will be one Next.js application, another Next.js application, a backend webhook handler. I'll come to what this is. A user withdrawal sweeper, a bank sweeper, Node.js. This will probably be either Node.js or Cloudflare. Next app, and a Postgres database. This whole architecture will from time to time interact with fake banking APIs, which means, HDFC Bank, SBI Bank, Axis Bank. Because when you're building a wallet, building something like Paytm, you want to allow people to transfer money from HDFC to your wallet And if you ever want, they want to send it back, you want to allow them to send their wallet balance back to HDFC Bank. So you need to connect to banking APIs. We don't have any access to banking APIs. We'll be mocking them out. But if you're building something like Paytm, connecting to other banks is, a bare minimum. All right. Feature planning. Ignore. Don't think this slide is needed. Let's get to the UI UX of what we're building today. I have copied over a bunch of payment applications as current websites, and we'll try to, reach very close to them. This is Venmo, if you've heard of it. It's the Paytm of US. This is what their login page looks like. So we'll try to build something very similar. This is what their login page, because second screen looks like. The first screen asks you for your email. Second screen asks you for your password. Landing page is pretty slick. We'll try to build this. We'll see when, today or tomorrow. But yeah. Then I was not able to log into Venmo. Paytm and PhonePe don't have web applications, which is why I went to Kraken. Kraken is a crypto exchange, but Paytm and crypto exchange fairly similar. You have some balance in there. You would draw them back to your bank account. You on-ramp from a bank. So the UI is very similar. So the main dashboard UI I've picked up from Kraken. When you log in, you'll see a screen like this. It will show you it's written portfolio value, but it will be like your wallet balance. And then maybe a graph that shows you what your balance looks like over time. You might, put 10,000 rupees in Paytm. Then you might be spending it on Swiggy every month or every day. So you'll see it sort of dwindle down. That will be the landing page we're building. There are a bunch of options here on the sidebar. We'll probably just build a small part of them. The biggest one is transfer. You want to allow a user to transfer money from their bank to their wallet. We're building conventional Paytm, not like UPI Paytm. We're literally building a wallet where people can put money in a wallet and then transact and then off-ramp that money back into a bank. So you'll need a screen like this where you can see, the user can see their balance. Ignore this. They can probably see their recent transactions. They've sent some money to Swiggy. They've sent some money to other friend of theirs, and a place for them to put money inside. They can select an amount. They can deposit money. They can also withdraw money if they want. Ki bhai, I want to pull out my wallet balance of 10,000 rupees back to my bank. They should have that option. And transfer for, transferring it to a friend. Just put their username or put their phone number and transfer the money over there. So, in the last Paytm project, we just built transfer. In this one, we're building deposit, withdrawals, portfolio value, things like these. A transaction section that shows you on-ramped, you put in 10,000 rupees, you're sending it to, whatever, Swiggy, Zomato, Uber, all of those transactions will appear on this page. And then maybe an accounts page that lets you change your password, things like these. Yeah, that's a brief of what we're building on the user side. This is assuming we are building a wallet where users can send money to each other. We don't have a merchant side yet, but Paytm supports merchant. If you go to your friend's shop, on a friend's shop, like a shop, you'll see that Paytm box, right? You'll see a QR code. So merchants have their own login, probably at, merchants.paytm.com, where they can order that sound box. They can receive it. People can start paying and they can track how much money came in, when it got withdrawn to their bank, things like these. So we need two front ends. One for the user, needs to be very pretty. One for a merchant, which, you can decide. Doesn't have to be very pretty. A lot of times these are not. They're like very simple. Merchant also needs a login page, but just to add some flavor, the login page here required email or phone number. The login page here will require login with Google or login with GitHub or whatever you want, Facebook. The goal is to learn or add more authentication providers to our application. The merchant will also see a screen like this where they'll see how much money is coming into their shop every month or every day. How much money are people spending every day? And transactions, someone gave them 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 20 rupees, things like these. That's easy enough. I guess a third section might be the money that's reaching their bank. So, on 2nd February, 50,000 rupees reached your bank. On 3rd February, Paytm sent 30,000 rupees to your bank. Maybe a third screen would be nice. But we'll see. These are a lot of things to build. So the architecture we can understand very well. Building, this can take like a month to build. So we'll see, how much we build, what we compromise on. Is it the UI? Is it the number of services? Things like these. Cool. That's it for the the high level things before we get into the architecture. Now I'll try to teach the architecture from a very high level. Let's see how that goes. Then we'll go from there. Are we good to go, guys? All right. So take care. Just feature in requirement gathering. So nothing too difficult. Architecture is going to be difficult. as I said, architecture of building a wallet like this, the way we are building it, where there are banks from which you can put money, and a crypto exchange is very similar. So let me quickly share how a crypto, not a Web2 exchange. Zerodha doesn't work like this. Zerodha is not an exchange, it's a broker. But NSE works like this. No, even NSE doesn't work like this. Crypto exchanges work like this. If there is a parallel to what we're building today, it is a crypto exchange like Binance. So let's see, how they are similar. Why is a crypto exchange like Binance and Paytm very similar? What happens in Paytm? When the user comes, the first thing they do is take money from their HDFC bank and put it in their Paytm wallet so that they have rupees 200 over here. What happens when you go to Binance? You do the same thing, right? You either put in money from HDFC bank, but India has very weird regulations. So you usually transfer crypto only from some other wallet of yours. I don't have crypto. I know. Even if you don't have crypto, most people from India generally already own crypto. They send their crypto over to Binance because I want to trade on Binance. You can also send INR here, but that comes with its own set of challenges, which I want to avoid. I just want to show the parallel between building something like Paytm and Binance. You send USDT here. Let's say you have rupees, or whatever, $200 in Binance. Now in Paytm, you spend this money where you give it to merchants. You send it to Swiggy. It cuts it from your balance. You send it to, something else, Uber, so on and so forth. And in the end, let's say you're only left with 20 rupees. You always have the option of sending it back to your HDFC bank, provided, probably 1% fees you have to pay to Paytm. That's how the features of Paytm works. There is an external service you are heavily reliant on, and these external services are not very reliable. I repeat, HDFC server, you can't assume to be very reliable. You can't just be like, https://api.hdfcbank.com/transfer/2 Harkirat/100 You can't just assume that, sending money to HDFC Bank will be this easy. Banks go up and down. Banks have very high latency. You have to track this transfer very heavily. कि भाई पहुंचा कि नहीं, has it reached the bank or not? You have to track this very heavily, and the same happens in a crypto exchange. Whenever you are sending money from the blockchain to an exchange, or whenever the user does whatever with this money, usually in an exchange you swap assets. You might lose some money, you might gain some money. Eventually you send that money back to the blockchain, and this option is also very unreliable. You don't know how much time it will take for it to reach the blockchain. Blockchain might be down, and same for submitting money to an exchange. So this is the reason they're very similar, because the way you architect the system is assuming people are going to send money, spend money, withdraw money from an external, highly unreliable service. That is why the architecture is fairly similar. Of course, the implementation of sending money and receiving money from a bank is very different from sending money and receiving money from an exchange. That's a brief of why they're very similar. Now let's look at the back-end services or front-end services we might need. At the very least, if you remember the first Paytm project that we had built, we need a simple Paytm front-end and a Paytm back-end. Assume there are no merchants. Okay, there is no merchant API. There's a simple user Paytm system where multiple people can register and send money to each other. In that case, the first thing you need is probably a simple front end and back end. And since Next.js supports both of them, you can have a simple Next.js server where people have front ends, where we have the front end and back end of our Paytm application. This probably needs a database. So you can have a Postgres DB that keeps track of all the users, as well as all the balances, as well as all the transfers. Okay, bhai, users, there are 100,000 users that we have, and every user has this much balance. And these were the transfers made in the last 1 day, 2 days, 10 days. Fairly simple Paytm app we have built until now. What is extra is, since we're allowing people to, send money from a bank and withdraw money to a bank, one thing that we need is, okay, bhai, a bank server needs to tell us if a user has sent money to their Paytm account. So we need either the same backend, our Next.js backend, or a separate backend, probably in Express, doesn't matter, simple backend whose job is simple. It's probably hosted on webhook.paytm.com, and the job is, okay, the bank is going to tell you, Harkirat sent you rupees 200, please credit it in their Paytm account. Harkirat, why are you not exposing this directly in the Next.js application? Why are you creating a separate backend service? Because this needs to be highly available. You need to make sure that, because if this goes down, the bank is trying to tell you, okay, Harkirat has sent 200 rupees, you might not be able to capture this request. Banks today are really smart. If one request gets missed, they retry after 5 minutes. But generally, you want this to be highly available. You want your primary application that will scale up and down, will have a lot of traffic, to be different, deployed differently. You want your webhook backend that is talking directly to the banks to be different, and it will have multiple endpoints. One for HDFC Bank, that the HDFC Bank API will hit, and then similarly, if there is another bank like Axis, that will probably hit a different endpoint /Axis, so on and so forth. Harkirat, when does this endpoint get hit? When the user goes here. If the user ever goes to this on-ramp page and clicks on net banking over here, if they say net banking, they will go to the HDFC website. When they go to the HDFC website and make the payment, then the HDFC server will tell us that the payment was done for this user. Harkirat, why separate backend? Why does the HDFC backend tell us? Why can't the user go to net banking page, come back to this front end, and then the front end can simply tell us, the front end can simply say /payment. I made a payment on HDFC Bank. Why are you creating such a complicated system that the bank server will tell us? Why can't the front end tell us that I have made the payment? Because this is a front end. If you ever pay, this is a screenshot taken from Make My Trip. If you ever go to Make My Trip and try to pay for anything, let's say I pay for a flight ticket or whatever, as I go through the steps, eventually I reach this payment. If I click on net banking and pay, I reach the bank page. And from the bank page, I again reach back Make My Trip where it shows confirmation. Why can't I reach back this page? And then the front end will simply tell the backend, which will tell the database that money has been added from HDFC Bank. The answer is, if you're ever sending a request from a front end, the user can spoof it, right? The user will not go anywhere. The user will come here and directly send the request to the backend. Okay, bro, I made a payment via HDFC Bank. It might also happen. Have you ever felt the anxiety? Okay, bro, you went to this net banking page, you paid and it got stuck, or your Wi-Fi went down. So money got debited from your HDFC Bank, but you don't see anything over here, in your balances or in your trips section in Make My Trip. This happens, right? You try your best. Even the payment page says, please don't reload when you're on the screen, when you're doing a payment. The reason is the same. The front end is highly unreliable. The user's Wi-Fi is highly unreliable. So if the payment has happened on the bank should tell us, our backend, payment has happened. You should not rely on our user, which is why whenever you're doing external payments, even when you integrate Razorpay, if you go to harkirat.classics.co.in and click on buy now, whenever you make this payment, Razorpay server hits a backend server of ours, which adds a purchase in the database. Nothing happens from the front end. So this is very common architecture when talking to bank APIs. By the bank will hit your backend, which is why we need another service here, which I've written. You can write it as a webhook service or bank API service, whose job is simple. Banks will hit their API. They will put in the database, Harkirat has 100 rupees, Harkirat has 200 rupees. They trust the bank. The bank will also make sure that they're actually transferring money to the Paytm bank. That way, the money gets transferred to Paytm's, wherever Paytm does banking. Today, Paytm is its own bank, but at some point they might have been doing banking with HDFC or Kotak. So whenever HDFC says Harkirat has spent 200 rupees, those 200 rupees reach the Paytm bank account, and the API tells the Paytm API, okay, 200 rupees, please credit to Harkirat's wallet balance because Harkirat has paid 200 rupees. Do we understand the goal of this backend service? If we do, then we can proceed to the merchant side. But you'll see from time to time, these extra auxiliary services, which not a lot of people understand right now. 70%. That is fine. IPL is on, guys. At least someone mentioned. So feel free to look at IPL. Well, I try to answer a few questions as to what might feel weird in this architecture. Any actionable questions, guys? What feels weird in this architecture? Recap, repeat, recap. All right. Last part. All right. Okay. You are a person who's buying a course over here. You click on buy now. What happens? You reach this page, right? I select net banking. I select HDFC Bank. I click on pay now. What happened? I reach the HDFC Bank page. I'm going to close this. I close the original page. I still am on the HDFC net banking page. This specific page I have closed. Okay? The front end that I had here, this front end has been closed. I'm still on the net banking page of HDFC. I go through the steps, continue, pay. When I pay, this says, okay, payment is done, you're good to go. I close it. How will harkirat.classics.co.in know that the payment has been done? I to close this. I clicked on pay now. And then immediately close this or whatever after the net banking pop-up came up. So if this website is now, back here, net banking HDFC pay now. If I closed this, yet I have this net banking page open. After I go through the steps and actually make the payment and then close this, how will harkirat.classics.co.in know? Okay, please add a purchase for Harkirat. The answer is Razorpay in this case, but generally if you're talking directly to HDFC, HDFC Bank will tell the backend server of harkirat.classics.co.in, okay, 3,000 rupees was paid by XYZ. Please purchase that. I mean, there will be application logic here on that endpoint that will add a purchase to the database. That is why you need this webhook server. Do we now understand why you need a webhook server whose job is simply to listen to the bank? If your question was, Harkirat, why is that webhook server separate and not in the main application? The answer is the main application. 92% is great. 90% is okay. Even if you don't understand this part, you can skip building this part, although, you shouldn't. And as time goes by, you might understand, but 91% is great. And yeah, if you might be thinking, why can't I merge? This is just a backend endpoint, right? Why can't I merge it here? The answer is you cannot anticipate traffic here. A lot of people might be doing Paytm APIs or using Paytm suddenly during a cricket match. And you don't want this server to go down because it's talking directly to the banks. So you want to make sure this is always highly available and hence, needs to be always up at all times, which is why you deploy it separately. And we're writing it separately in an Express application. Great. If we understand this much, then we understand, if you look at the final architecture diagram, we understand the user Next.js application and we understand this bank webhook handler. There are still a bunch of services, but at least these two we understand. Let me introduce a third service. Make this a little bit cleaner. You guys understand the Express webhook server. We understand the Next.js application and we understand the Postgres database as well. One more thing that happens is people might send money back to HDFC Bank. If this is HDFC Bank, people might request, KR, I want to send money back to HDFC Bank. I don't like your wallet anymore. So we need to make sure we send a request to hdfcbank.com/API/transfer so that the money from Paytm's bank account, if this is Paytm bank account, the money from this bank account reaches HDFC Bank, and we also need to do a -200 in the user's wallet balance here. We also need to send 200 rupees from here to here. So you need to hit some banking API. And this banking API will also be a webhook that they have written. They are like, we are listening, bro. If you ever want to send us money, let us know. So we know you have sent us 200 rupees. So we'll be sending money here to HDFC Bank or, hitting an API whenever a user requests for a withdrawal. Whenever the user is on this screen right here, which one? This one. And there's a withdraw option here, right? If they click on the withdraw option, they have the option of sending their wallet balance back to HDFC or whatever bank they want. When that happens, we need to hit the HDFC bank server. And this would be very easy if you can simply hit the HDFC bank server. But as I said, there are some requests that are highly unreliable. It might happen that the HDFC bank server is down. So you need to keep retrying sending this. You can or this might take 2 minutes for some reason. HDFC bank is really slow. So you can do one of two things. Yeah, so you can be like, okay, bro, if the user sends a request, I will try hitting the HDFC bank. If it fails, I will tell the user request failed, please try again. You can do that. If you are going to do that, then this architecture is good enough. I repeat, if a user comes to your website and asks to withdraw money, then you can hit the HDFC bank server. If it responds back in 10 seconds, कि भाई transfer is done, you can tell the end user transfer is done. You can debit 200 rupees from their account. Or if you are not sure, if you don't want to give them such a bad experience, if they've asked for some transfer and you're hitting HDFC bank and HDFC bank is down and you want to keep retrying it, then you need another service, which I had called the withdrawal service, which we can decide whether or not we want to use, whose job is simple. Okay, bhai, if someone has asked for a withdrawal, then this withdrawal request will sit in a queue. I repeat, this withdrawal request, okay, bhai, Harkirat wants to transfer out 200 rupees, will sit in a queue. Harkirat 200 rupees, and then this queue could be really long. There could be multiple things here, and this withdrawal services job is, if I take one thing from here, try to hit HDFC bank server. If the bank server says you're good to go, then withdraw this money from the wallet balance of user minus 200. And if this doesn't happen, then put it back in the queue and retry it after some time. So depends on whether or not you want to try this retry logic. To keep things simple, we can remove this extra service, the withdrawal service, and simply be like, hey, bro, we will hit HDFC bank server. If it works, we'll tell the user you're good to go. If this does not work, then we'll stop. There is one problem in this approach, which is if the user clicks withdraw twice, if they very fast click withdraw, then you will hit HDFC bank really quickly. You will transfer 400 rupees to HDFC bank without checking, okay, this user actually only has 200 rupees, so you cannot transfer 400 rupees. So ideally, you should be sending messages to this HDFC bank server sequentially. So you generally should use a queue over here. If you are building something like this, specifically a withdrawal service, right? It should go from a queue. Right? There is a withdrawal queue and you are only processing one request at a time. There is a withdrawal queue. Okay, user with ID 1 wants to send 200 rupees. User with ID 1 wants to spend 400 rupees. User with ID 2 wants to send out 300 rupees, so on and so forth. They are all in a queue. And whoever is clearing this queue, whatever service is pulling things out of this queue and hitting netbanking.hdfcbank.com needs to make sure that bhai, user 1, if I've picked something for user 1, I am the only one who's processing user 1. No one else should pick up user 1 and process it. You should never parallelly process requests for the same user. If you do, you'll pretty much, send 600 rupees to their bank account, or 200 plus 200 equal to 400 rupees to their bank account. This is an extremely safe path that you need. You need to make sure if people are asking for withdrawals and very quickly clicking the withdraw button, you process them sequentially. You hit the bank server. If it says transfer is done, you come back, you subtract their wallet balance, then you pick the next item for that user. Never parallelly request or parallelly process two withdrawal requests for the same user. Anyways, users don't withdraw so quickly very often, so it's fine even if it happens after a second, after 2 seconds. So one of these architectures we will use. That was the goal of introducing the withdrawal service, whose job is, we'll look at this. I said user withdrawal sweeper. Job is, bro, there will be a queue over here. Pick something from that queue. Tell HDFC Bank, I'm sending you 200 rupees. Do a minus 200 on the user and then, go from there. Then pick it again, so on and so forth. Do we understand the withdrawal service? I think we'll just have to stick with user. I don't think we can do merchant today, but that's fine. We can start coding. We can add merchant eventually. All right. Cool, guys. 90% is good. Okay. A lot of things you can understand eventually. Initially, just try to build the basic Paytm application. Eventually, we can add these withdrawal services. There's a lot to code because, Prisma, Next Auth, user service, merchant service, even though we're not writing merchant service. You see a few other options here, right? There is a Next.js merchant app. There is a Next.js merchant sweeper. So feel free to ignore these two. We are not building the merchant site just yet. By merchant site, I mean, this where someone like Swiggy can come and register, or, a Dukandar can come, a shopkeeper can come and register. We are simply building a Next.js app, a withdrawal service in Node.js, a webhook handler in Node.js, and that's it. Banking APIs will spoof. So, we don't have to write any of this code. This is written by HDFC Bank engineers. We just need to give them an endpoint that they hit. Since we don't have access to banking APIs, we'll dummify banking APIs for now. Cool. Hot paths. I mean, the database paths you need to be very cautious with when you're creating a money application. Number one, send money to someone. This though we did in the first Paytm project as well. Whenever you're sending money to someone, make sure they can't spend it twice. If I have 200 rupees, I can't quickly click the send button and send two different people 200 each. You need to make sure I'm only able to transfer to one person at a time. Withdraw balance of a merchant or even of a user. If I go here and withdraw 200 twice, need to make sure it happens very slowly and processed one by one. Parallelly, you don't try to hit the bank server for the same user. Withdraw balance of user back to the bank. This is basically the point of this. Withdraw this user sweeper back to the bank. The other one was for the merchant, which we're not building. And webhooks for that transfer money from banks in. Basically, if this bank API is hitting your webhook, you need to do a few checks. Ki bhai, has this transfer happened before? It might happen that the bank retried and sent you the same request twice. So you need to make sure that bhai, you only add 200 rupees once for the user. The bank API might hit you twice, but there will be some ID that will let you identify that this is for this specific session. You should make sure you don't add 200 rupees to the wallet twice. These are the hot paths, the things that you need to be very secure around. Otherwise, don't build a money app, because if you're building a money app, if someone takes advantage of it, they can pull out a lot of money from your bank. This is a 1 month job for a 2-engineer team, probably more. So, we'll have to cut scope if you want to build this in 1 or 2 weekends. I don't know how much time we'll take on this. We can cut scope in either UI, not build as pretty stuff, because, that's the easy bit. Number of features that we're supporting, remove merchants altogether. I think we're already doing this. We'll see if we want to add back merchants. If you understand the first part, adding merchants should be straightforward. And number of services that we need. As I said, you can, always, you don't need a webhook server. Just merge it here. Don't create a separate Express app. So we can decide what to cut as time goes by. But even before we start implementing anything, since we are building this right, since we have a monorepo with Prisma and Postgres and 2 front ends and 3 back ends and, Next Auth for authentication, a lot of things to build. I'll also add Recoil. I'll also add Prisma will be a separate module. So there's like a lot of things to do. Bootstrapping an app like this, or any app in itself, is going to take us half an hour at least. I've written all the steps after this. That's what we'll do next. Probably today we'll just be able to bootstrap a simple monorepo, which has, a bunch of modules that we'll use. And then probably tomorrow we can start adding features, but we'll see if we get time. Cool. Are we good to go, guys? Can we get into the coding bit? Should I take a break? We can take a break if need be. Do you need a break? Yes or no? Before we start coding? Okay, so 50-50. Let's take a small one then. It's 46% yes and 54% no. It's a very small break. 4 minutes. Let's meet back at 7:48 and let's start to proceed with our stack and build the project. 4 more minutes, guys. I'll open Q&A and try to answer a few things until then. Can't we use Razorpay API for payments? You can, but Paytm would never use Razorpay. Razorpay charges 2%, 1% fees. When you're building a wallet, if someone gives you 200 rupees, if they withdraw back, you have to return them 200 rupees. So you cannot use someone else. You have to integrate directly with the bank. For testing purposes, we can introduce Razorpay. But yeah, you probably don't want to do that as Paytm. Javed, I know. Check out the issue. I remember that top of my head, top of my stack. I will look at yours first. If it fixes it, you'll get the bounty. I'm building to ignore that. Superbase alternative. Firebase is the only Superbase alternative I know. App is down. I think it's back up. Let me see. Is transaction heavy in a transaction heavy app? Oh, it is down. You're not wrong. Sorry guys, the website is down, so I'm just debugging what's up. Anyways, I have a 3-minute break. Probably Apex is down. Seems up. Sorry guys, live debugging. 2 more minutes, then we'll start. To be working. Oh god. Sorry about that. Let's look at Q&A until then. Can you explain the merchant section in the break? Oh, well, I think we're a little late for that, but I will in an offline video either way. If I don't code it, I will at least explain the merchant part and how to build it. Hono has a lot of type issues. Could you elaborate? Could you give an example? You still see 500 on projects.netresearch.com also. Let's see. Projects looks good. App seems down, but projects looks good. Could be wrong. But app is down for now. 1 second. I'm just fixing it. The app should be up. I think so. Q&A. 1 more minute and then we'll proceed. Features होने चाहिए. Merchants छोड़ा तो you can just guide us to build. Yeah. I will definitely guide. If not, post the code. I'll code it myself silently and then post the code you can look at. We'll figure that out. Why are we not using Axios instead of Express? Why are we not using Axios instead of Express? It's a wrong question, sir. Very different things both of them do. What is that PM2 thing you're using? We introduced in the cohort. It's for process management. It keeps the process up in the background. If I exit from this terminal, the app will still stay up. All right, guys. Boy, what a roller coaster of a class today. Lot of live debugging. Cool. So yeah, the next few steps are project independent. Doesn't matter if you're building, Paytm or something else. If you're building a stack like this, which is Next.js for frontend or backend, Express for auxiliary backends, or even your primary backends, doesn't matter. Turbo repo for build management. Postgres database, Prisma, ORM, and Tailwind. Then the monorepo stack that we're building is you can reuse it for multiple projects. All the steps that we're doing today. It will also give you an intuition of in the future if you want to add other packages, how can you add them? Cool. So let's try to build them one by one. Try to follow along. In the end, I'll just post my code to GitHub. So if you don't want to follow along, that's fine as well. But there'll be a bunch of challenges, I can already tell you. So keep that in mind. Always a good idea to go through challenges yourself. All right. Let's open a terminal on one side. Let's open the steps on a different side. If you want to Google the steps, you can and you should also, because how many times will you have a doc like this to follow? But if you want to just follow along, that's fine as well, as long as you understand. First step is just initializing the turbo repo. This takes a long time, so would urge you to quickly run the command, because this can take up to 2 minutes for some people. npx create turbo at the rate of latest. Give it whatever name you want. I'm going to name it week 18 live. Ideally select Yarn workspaces if you have Yarn. If you don't, if you're a beginner, if you've never used Yarn, then select npm workspaces for now and let it download all the files. This takes a very long time for me also, so it's fine. Once this is done, open it in Visual Studio Code. If this takes a long time for you, it's also already present on GitHub. So you can clone I totally forgot what repo it was, but I think week 15 one. No. week 16 1. Yeah, you can just clone this repository if this takes a long time for you, because this repository has the same code. But if you want to do it yourself, that's fine as well. Either way, just simple thing you have to do: initialize a turbo repo. If you have not gone through the turbo repo class, things are going to be uphill from here. If you have gone through the turbo repo class, then you will be fine. So feel free to decide based on that whether or not you understand things from here. This is what I was trying before the class, just to make sure everything happens correctly. So merchant app, user app, we'll probably not be building the merchant app right now. But yeah, I was just making sure all the steps do what they're supposed to do. Let me open it in Visual Studio Code, the empty repository. File, open. I'm not moving ahead right now. I know it takes a long time for some people. Week 18 live. I don't know, we're probably at week 17, but doesn't matter. You can name it whatever you want. I'll wait for a minute and then we'll start. Until that, then get comfortable with this application. If you've gone through the monorepo, you already are comfortable. If you have not gone through the monorepo video, you probably won't be comfortable. So decide. If it's too difficult, then also feel free to drop off, because if you don't understand what docs is, what web is, what apps are, what packages are, if you don't understand monorepos until now, a lot of this will be a little ऊपर से चला जाएगा. All right, we'll wait for 30 more seconds and then we'll proceed. The most time consuming bits of this might be building the front end. Back end will be fairly straightforward. That's generally true. Most time takes, front end takes most of the time, but we'll see. All right. Wait for 20 more seconds, then we'll go. I know a few people, monorepos take a long time for people to get installed. The command, in case you're still curious, npx create -turbo @latest, and then give it a name, and then select yes for every option that comes after that. 10 more seconds. I'll also do a poll just to make sure I'm not running too fast here. No, pretty good. I mean, goodish. Not great. Slowly going down. 73%. I can wait for like 2 more minutes. If you want to run ahead, the steps are already there. Feel free to run a step ahead of the class as well. Because, these are all very big steps to do. Renaming is easy, but adding Tailwind is a whole challenge in itself. And you can also use this repository. Feel free to read a bit ahead. I'll wait for a few more minutes and answer chat a bit. Video is lagging. Okay, I'm waiting. It is lagging. Not accessible. Akshay, just go to projects.redxdevs.com. Should I use WSL or Windows when following you? Use WSL. Why not use Redux toolkit? Because we've not learned it yet. We've only learned turbo repo. If you don't understand, then you haven't gone through the turbo repo class from week 15 or 16, one of those. Are we going to do Docker CI/CD setup? We can do it. We need to do it. We can do it in this application since we're building it. We learn it while building it. What are backend alternatives to Express, as in creating backend servers? Koa, KOA, I think is one. Hono is one. Bunch of others, like bunch of backend HTTP servers. GitHub issues data. I'll try to look at them. All right. Cool. I hope it's done for most people. It was 75% before that. I'm hoping the number is similar, if not more than that. But yeah, the next few, the next 40 minutes is going to be a lot of pain of this only, trying to bootstrap the application. If you miss a step, probably cannot proceed from there. It'll just, get difficult and difficult. So try your best to not miss any step. Even though generally it's a good idea to miss a step and then, figure things out yourself. But since, beginner friendly for now, trying to take everyone with us, try to stay with the class as much as you can. All right. Now that you've initialized it, the next thing you have to do is add Tailwind to the project. Now, there are various ways of adding Tailwind to a monorepo. In fact, there is an example in Turbo Repo called with dash Tailwind that you can simply use. You don't, need to manually add them. All the steps are already done for this. As you can see, this also has 2 applications and a bunch of packages. So you don't really need, sorry, 1 second guys. You don't really need to do all of this yourself. You can just use this as a starting point. Sorry. Or you can manually add Tailwind. So the way to manually add Tailwind is you have 2 applications, which is, I guess one more step we have to do before that. We have done step 1. We forgot step 2. How many Next.js applications do we have? I repeat, how many Next.js applications do we have? We just have 1 now. We thought of skipping the second one. We are not building the merchant app. We can eventually. For now, what are we building? We are just building the user app. So feel free to get rid of one of the apps over here. You don't need both the Next.js applications. You can simply, work with, sorry about that. You can simply work with whichever one of these you want. So I'm going to delete docs from here. Feel free to do that on your side as well. Delete docs, and in the web folder, probably rename this to user-app, or whatever you want to call it. You could call it Paytm app. You could call it Paytm client app. I'm going to write user app because in the future I'm going to introduce merchant app as well, which will be the merchant's front end and back end code. That's step 2, just renaming the application. And then third step is actually adding Tailwind to it. If you remember Tailwind, the way to add Tailwind to a Next.js application was going to tailwindcss.com, getting started, installation, framework guides, and we want to install it in a Next.js application. So you have to simply run these 2 commands in the Next.js application folder. The important bit being, don't run this in the global folder, the root folder. Run this in, if I open the terminal, cd apps/user app, or whatever you might have renamed it. You might have renamed it to something else, app/user app for me. And then run these commands that install Tailwind and PostCSS. npm install -d, which means make it a dev dependency. Don't understand it, it's fine. Tailwind PostCSS auto prefix, and then npx Tailwind CSS init -p. If you run this, you should have Tailwind installed in your project. I will repeat the command. You can copy it from here as well. I can paste it in chat as well in case you're following along. npm install -d, capital D, Tailwind CSS, post CSS auto prefixer. And then the second command is npx Tailwind CSS init -p. What does the second command do? It will create a tailwind.config.js file over here, where you usually update the content where you'll be writing Tailwind code. Where will we be writing Tailwind code? This is a Next.js application. It's already mentioned over here. The contents are something like this. You don't really need the last one. The first 3 contents, either in the app folder, or we won't even put it in the pages folder. You don't even need this. Just this and this are good enough. Just this is also good enough because we will write most of our code, probably all of our code here in the app folder. So you can simply write this, or if you want copy over or everything, doesn't matter. More doesn't hurt, less will hurt. So you can paste all of these paths over here. What is the significance of these paths, Harkirat? Whenever you write Tailwind code, the CSS that is generated from all the Tailwind code that you have written. If I go to app/page.tsx and start to write some Tailwind code over here, for example, class name equal to font-xl. This font-xl needs to be picked up by Tailwind. It needs to know that this page.tsx is going to have Tailwind code. So it adds the corresponding CSS class to the final CSS file. Sorry, my throat is gone. So, that is why you need all of these paths. The only peculiar thing here is amongst all of these, you need to add one more path. And can you guess what that path is? If you've gone through monorepos, you should know the answer. What other path is where I'll be writing a bunch of React code that might use Tailwind? Can you guess? Small hint. If I open this, if you remember into packages, is there something here where we'll be writing front-end code? And could that front-end use Tailwind? Probably this UI folder. This UI folder will most probably use, you'll eventually write front-end code here. So you need to tell Tailwind, okay, bhai, whenever you're building this specific app over here, whenever you're building the user app, please also look at // packages / UI / everything that's written here. Source /*/ dot all of these extensions, because UI has a source folder inside which we will be writing a bunch of Tailwind classes. You can also abstract all of this into a separate folder called Tailwind config, which can be reused across multiple applications. We're not doing that right now. But if you want to write even lesser amount of code, you can actually abstract this out to a separate package and reuse that package everywhere. Doesn't matter right now because we have a single application. Do we understand adding just the Tailwind config? There are a bunch of other things to add, but were we able to add Tailwind? I mean, Tailwind isn't done yet, like just starting to add Tailwind. 80%. For people for whom it worked, there are some steps afterwards. Can you try to follow the steps and ensure Tailwind is working as expected? Make some code change. Make sure you see Tailwind. Run ahead a little bit. Tab tak I'll try to look at Q&A really quickly. What's up with 20%? Anything up? Someone is facing issues. npm yarn workspaces docs filter, but no workspace present folder. Yarn workspaces docs in folder set, but no workspace in folder present. What folder are you running the command in, Dipanshu? Parsing error. ESLint was configured to run on password project. Oh, I've seen this before. Google this. Akash, there's a very simple solution you'll find. I've seen the exact error. Try converting parser options.project, removing parser options.project from tailwind.config.css or tsconfig, wherever it's present, and see if it works. In a transaction heavy application, wouldn't Next.js cost be tremendous? Depends on how you're deploying your application. If a user clicks twice very fast, then wouldn't that put a transaction in a queue twice? If you have a merchant in the future, you'll also have to add a QR code. I think it's very easy to add it. Yeah. So you're saying Next.js application cost will be high because you'll have a very long running requests? Yes, but you don't have to necessarily deploy to a place that charges you per minute, right? Yeah. Right. Cool. Bunch of people are seeing errors. This project is if your project is configured to use PNPM, then you have to use PNPM. When you were creating the application, create turbo, and what package manager did you select? Oh God. If you selected PNPM workspaces, I don't have it, but if you selected that, then you have to use PNPM everywhere. Don't use NPM. If you selected yarn, then use yarn everywhere. That is the error few of you are seeing. So don't run npm install, run yarn install, or run PNPM install. How did you add elements in content in Tailwind? So the first parts I copied by default, because if you look at tailwind.config.js, a lot of the code I'll be writing here in the app folder, a lot of the front end code, and a lot of it I will be writing in ... which means this folder, ... which means root folder. So ... // and then packages, which means this folder right here, then UI, which means this folder right here, then source, then all the files inside that end with JS, TS, JSX, TSX, or MDX. That is why I added this path as well. and everything else I just copied, right? But what I really need is just these two. I don't even need, the ones in the middle, because I'm not writing any code in components. There isn't even a components folder in user app. So components doesn't matter, source doesn't matter, pages doesn't matter. Only these two are also good enough. Cool. If you were able to do this, hopefully the next steps are fairly clear. You have to go to the global CSS file, which in this case is, okay, firstly, are we good to go? Are people able to do this much? Feel like this will be a very long project that will be covered in a combination of offline and online videos. Okay, 86% is, good, not great. But let me slowly try to proceed. People who are lagging behind, steps are written over here. If it doesn't work the first time, a few things I do is delete the project and bootstrap it. Next time when I'm bootstrapping it, not use npm but use yarn. And yeah, that's pretty much it. All the steps that we're following from the slides. All right. Next step is adding these global classes to the CSS file, which in my case is global.css. Remove all the CSS that's present here and just add this much. We had a bunch of default CSS, which we don't need. We'll be writing all the CSS ourselves from scratch. Next step is go to apps, user app global.css and replace the CSS file with these. And lastly, make sure it works. How would you make sure Tailwind is working? You can just go to one of the Next.js components. So app/page.tsx, app/page.tsx. Maybe remove all the code from here. I'll take a small breather after this, but let me just quickly finish this part. Tailwind. Remove all the code and add a very simple div. Hi there. And then try adding a Tailwind class here. Class name equal to text-2xl, which means hi there should be a very big text. If the final website that is built from this has this as a very big text, it means Tailwind is working. If not, it means Tailwind isn't working. One more thing you should probably test is, add some code here that's Tailwind in UI and make sure the UI also looks fine. I'm not going to, but it will, because, we've made the right changes. So let me save this. Let me open the terminal. npm run, you can run npm run dev here, or you can go to apps/user app. Oh, I'm already in the user app folder. Sorry. I'm already in apps/user app. So I can run npm run dev over here. And if I go to localhost colon 3000, I see a bunch of errors. Cannot find module Tailwind CSS. Did I not already install it? npm install -t. I reran the command if you saw the same error. Let's see. All right. I see a very big hi there. I don't know how many of you see it. But as you saw, I saw an error. When I saw the error, I fixed it by whatever it was telling me. It was telling me Tailwind isn't installed. I don't know why. Probably I ran it in the wrong folder. I don't know. But if I go to page.tsx, if I write text-2xl, I see a big text here. How many of you see the same thing? Also, if you feel this is getting a little too difficult, whatever is the final, boilerplate code by the end of the class, I'll post somewhere. We'll start tomorrow from there. So, you can just follow along from there. But how many people were able to set this up? Let's see and get a head count. Were you able to set up Tailwind in a monorepo, which, itself took us almost 20 minutes. Okay. 66%. We should take a pause here because 66% though is really bad. I'm looking at Q&A. People will follow along the project, won't be completed. Wouldn't it be better if you explain, build the features and we ask them to implement it? We can do a poll on that. I don't know. We can, yeah. This will get really long if we follow along like this. Can you give us a small recap of the project setup now? I'll see. We can do that. Maybe in a while. Node modules are not in that folder because everything is in the root folder. This command does not support workspaces. What is the command that you're running? So we implement relevant money schema database logic. Will we implement? Yeah, we'll implement as much of it as we can. Let's go with backend architecture development. Frontend is never a challenge. I agree, sir. भैया एक वीडियो बनाने explaining how to use env in variable dockers. I'm getting below errors. Don't see the errors. Should we add Kafka service to webhook? We should exactly, that is exactly what we should add, and we will in 1-200. We haven't introduced Kafka right now. But yeah, yes. What point do you think we should introduce Kafka in? We have a unique topic for every bank. I feel so because it's very crucial service. HTTP might require if Paytm backend is down, but Kafka will know. Yeah, that depends on So I don't know what you're saying. Are you saying that bank hits our bank server and then we put it in Kafka? Works. Or are you saying that bank itself puts it in our Kafka queue? If that's a little complicated. A lot of banks don't probably, put data directly in a Kafka queue, but it probably makes sense to throw it in a queue, in case our server goes down. All right, just errors. Cannot get ESLint config. Oof. Okay. Can you try Yarn? Whoever is seeing an error, can you try Yarn as your package manager? Where to install Tailwind again? Yeah. So I think the suggestion that someone gave might be right. This is the website from which you can understand how to install Tailwind. But yeah, it seems like I should probably code this and, share the steps. I don't know. We'll do a poll. But okay, some people who were asking how to install, these are the steps to follow. Just go to Tailwind CSS, select Next.js as the framework and do it. Let us do the front end. Yeah, okay, works for me. That's great. I think TAs will take care of doubts. Okay, cool. All right, so in that case, I will proceed. I do agree to that. I mean, I think we'll just get stuck if we don't proceed now. So let me do that. Cool. Tailwind is done. You might feel, a lot of the bootstrapping is done and you're good to go. But unfortunately, that's not the case. After adding Tailwind, we need to add Prisma. And if you remember initially, we might have multiple front ends. User app might not be the only front end that needs to talk to the database. So initializing Prisma in user app might be a bad idea because Kalko, another front end might come here. That will also, you'll have to initialize Prisma there. Then a third front end might come. You'll keep reinitializing Prisma again and again. And that's not a good idea, which is why you probably need another module here called Prisma or database or ORM, whatever you want to call it, inside which you will write all of your Prisma logic. So this slide is going to be about getting a database from NeonDB or wherever you want and adding a new package here that all of your applications can reuse to talk to the database. If you remember the initial architecture, what was the initial architecture? Everything was talking to a database. If you look at these green lines are that everything needs to put some data in the database, remove some data from the database, which is why you need this database logic in, a single central place, which we are going to do here. So the first step when you're adding any package is add a new folder over here. You can call it whatever you want. I'll call it Prisma, or you can call it ORM, DB, what have I mentioned here? DB. So let's just call it DB. And then initialize a package.json over here. So let me go to packages/db. If Tailwind doesn't work for you, feel free to proceed to this step. Packages/db followed by npm init-y to initialize package.json, npx tsc-init to initialize tsconfig.json. Given that you have a fresh package now called db, which has a package.json and has a tsconfig.json, what do you think the next step is? First step, whenever you're creating a package, is naming this right at repo/db, let's say. Do not, use a globally namespaced username or like name. Namespace it down to, whatever you want to call it. This should ideally be, whatever, at Paytm or at 100xdevs/Paytm. But okay, for now, we're just renaming it to repo, which means our repository. Next up, given that you've created this specific package, you probably should update the tsconfig as well. Do you remember what this should be updated to from the monorepo class? You should try and copy over as much as, so I'm just going to copy it over from UI/tsconfig.json and probably replace react dash library from base, or whatever that base ts config is. So if I go to ts config slash base.json, at repo slash TypeScript config slash base.json, because a lot of the basic bootstrapping of TypeScript is done here. I don't want to rewrite all of this over here. I'm just going to reuse at repo slash TypeScript config slash base.json. If it was a front-end app, then it would have been react.json. But since this is a pure backend thing, whatever we're writing in DB, I can just use base.json. Cool. Next step. This is done. npx prisma init to actually initialize prisma config.json or whatever schema.prisma. After you run npx prisma init, and make sure you're running it in the db folder. I repeat, make sure you're running it in the db folder. You will see a schema.prisma file where you will now add your model, which is however you want to write the database schema of your application. We have a very extensive application, so this will become very big eventually, but for now a simple model called user works, which has an age, might currently be viewing, I don't know what that means, string, name string, or I don't know, email string, and then password maybe. All right, bunch of errors. We'll see why that is. Let's see what I'm doing wrong here. You can just copy it from the slides as well. Model user int, I guess I forgot a primary key, but you get the idea. Initializing a basic user schema. Harkirat, where is the rest? There should be a transaction model, there should be a transfer model, there should be a bank transfer model, there should be a balance model. Where is all of this, Harkirat? We'll eventually add it. The goal right now is to make sure, are you able to add Prisma to the project? Are your backends able to put data inside the database? For that, I've added a very basic schema. What do you do after you add the schema? Number one, you get a database. So at this point, you should get a database from neon.db. Steps are somewhere here, but you get the idea. Go to neon.tech and buy a database, or go to console.avian.io. And from here, log in and get a database. You can also start it locally using Docker. We have learned that a few times now. So I'm just going to start it locally using Docker. You can either get it from any global internet service, or you can start it locally as well. The command to run Postgres on your machine locally is what I'm pasting in chat right now. So feel free to use that command. Docker run -e, which means environment variable. This is the password to your Postgres application. Run it in detached mode, have this port mapping, and run Postgres locally. Once you run this command, Postgres should start for you locally inside a Docker container. And you can go to the .env file and replace this with your local database URL. If you're using NeonDB, then just get the correction string from there and put it. If you're using something else, put it here from there. All right. This is going to be Postgres, which is my username. By default, if you don't give anything, the default username is Postgres. Password is this for me. Again, for you, you can just copy it from somewhere. localhost:5432/Postgres. This is my connection string. For you, it might be something else. After you do this, so you have initialized schema.prisma, added a .env, you have your right database URL here. Generally, you should start it locally and only have a local database URL here. Do not put your production URL here usually, because then you'll end up committing it to GitHub and everyone can read it. All right. Once you've done that, what's the next step? npx prisma generate and give this migration a name, let's say init. sorry, npx prisma migrate dev, my bad. npx prisma migrate dev, and give this migration a name, which in my case, I'm naming it init. And once I do, my local database should migrate to this schema, which basically means it should have a users table now. If I try to look at my local database, you don't have to, but like if I look at mine, you'll see it has a user database now because I migrated my database by running the prisma migrate command locally. Given this is done as well, can you guess the next step? It's going to be generating the client, npx prisma generate, and that should generate a prisma client in, as you can see, dot dot slash node modules at prisma slash client. It does not generate it in this folder. Most of your dependencies will be present in this root folder over here. That's how, you know, Turbo repo optimizes all the dependencies being reused across packages. If you want, you can force them up the chain, but usually most of your dependencies will be present in the root folder. Cool. That's almost the Prisma part done. So if I go to db/package.json, can you guess what the next step is going to be? If I've already generated the client, you actually don't have to put any more steps. You can directly go to wherever you want in your app and import Prisma client from @prisma/client, or at least I thought, yeah, you can do that, right? So you can simply do this as well, because the @prisma/client was generated in the root node modules. But ideally, you want to export all of this from the DB module. So ideally, you want to go to packages/db and create a index.ts file here. And here you can write export star from @prisma/client. So everyone is importing the database dependency from this DB module and not directly from node modules. Doesn't really matter unless you're thinking of switching this database or ORM to something else in the future. But yeah, generally good practice. Export star from @prisma/client in the index.ts folder in DB, which is this step over here. Lastly, you probably want to, the package.json already had this exports section, but you want to add it because we did not copy the package.json from here. To add the exports section to package.json, which tells ./source/index.ts. Okay, ./client is exported from this thing over here, and now you're good to go. Now you can run npm install again in the root folder and start to use Prisma client from @repo/db. So @repo/db should be added as a dependency to apps/user/app/package.json. Add it as a dependency over here, and then run npm install globally. I repeat, in the root folder, rerun npm install, and then you can use the Prisma client directly from here @repo/db. If I go to app/page.tsx, I can now write import Prisma client from @repo/db/client, const client equal to new Prisma client. It's giving me a type error here. We do a global npm install again. I saw the same thing a while back. I think this will still work. It's giving a type error, but it still should be able to hit the database. But let me take a pause here because I'm seeing the numbers dwindle a bit. How are we doing, guys? Were you guys able to add Prisma? Probably not a lot of people, but let's see. We might have to change how we do this, by the way. We probably no, okay. We'll probably do this in phases. which means, we'll build small features tomorrow. We'll build some small feature like, I don't know, we'll do a little bit of CI/CD or something. And the whole big Prisma like Paytm project will probably be either an offline video or a stream where I'm building it and you're just trying to learn it and then coding it yourself. I'm open to ideas though, but yeah, let's take a pause over here and breathe for a bit. A few things that are left are, after you add Prisma, the next thing that I wanted to add was, add Recoil, which, along with all the packages over here, add a Recoil project or a store project where you have all of your atoms and selectors. The thing that I wanted to introduce after that was adding next auth. So what we can do is, cut the scope a bit and not use monorepos. Simply use a simple Next.js application. Probably will be easier. It took us a long time to bootstrap everything. So we might start tomorrow from a simple Next.js application and not do monorepo stuff. Something like that. Yeah. But I'll take a pause here and do a quick poll. Not a poll. Let me just open Q&A. Anything specific that felt a little weird, or any suggestions on how we can npx was my generator is not working for migration. So did you update? Is it giving you an error? Can you put the error here? Unable to log into application. Advertiser.com is. You might be getting rate limited, so you'll have to try in a while. Actually, that's surprising. Oh, well, I'm not able to log in either. So, oh no, sorry, my credentials aren't right. Now the hell. Yeah, I'll debug this in a while, in like 10 minutes. Let me look at Q&A until then. I'll fix this. Show package.json in source/user data app. It's the same as source/user app, which is there you go. So let me just share some context for the rest of the class, which is like 30 more minutes. We'll do a bit of Q&A followed by me fixing the website. I don't know what's up with the website. And tomorrow I'll try to, cut scope a bit and build a smaller project, I guess. And then the main Paytm project will be a stream where I code, you don't code, and then, or it'll be an offline video. Okay. App.100steps.com is down. I'll look at that in a minute. Do monorepo, please. I don't know about that, dude. As you can see, even setting up a monorepo is a pain. We'll do a poll on Discord and, based on that, we'll decide. If it's a monorepo, it'll have to be an offline video for sure. Bit slow, continue with monorepo only. A lot of people are saying monorepo. Okay, we'll see. We'll do a poll. You are doing good, don't you? Okay, cool. Please repeat the Docker content. Do you mean redo a Docker video? Dude, there's one on YouTube. There's one from the previous cohort. There's one we did in this cohort. We have a few Docker videos, I think. Give a short assignment. Oh, well, do everything mentioned and try adding login with Facebook or login with Discord. Try adding login with Discord. That's a decent challenge. Yeah. Code along much better. People procrastinate after the class and never build it then. But code along is like painfully slow, right? We weren't able to create I don't think we can build a project as big. We can create a smaller project, but not this big a project in a code along. Prisma multiple instances problem. If you're using Prisma Accelerate, never a problem. That's why Accelerate was introduced, right? Do monorepo only. Also, if you're facing problems in app.100steps.com, please temporarily go to harkira.classes.co.in. This has everything. It's becoming harder and harder to maintain two projects. The hell. Sorry guys, 1 second. Sorry guys, I'm just live debugging a bit. This website is up. This one's down. Why is there no source folder inside DB? it doesn't matter, right? If you want, you can add one. Depends on where you're exporting from. So if you go to db/package.json, it really depends on where you're adding this export from. Did I forgot to add a source folder? db, that makes sense, right? That might be why the type issue was there. /index.ts. This is what sort of I need to add. Or you can add a source folder and then make sure the export has it as well. PM2QL7 videos. This is why I hate, this Next.js stack. It gets very finicky very quickly. Versus, daily code is usually more up because it's React plus Firebase. Anyways, sorry guys. If you create this project without using Turbo Repo, then will it be more easy to understand? Yeah. Today we learned nothing about the project, right? If we build it in React plus Express, it will be the easiest to understand. That's what we did here. In where did it go? The original Paytm project that we had. Eventually, we started to add more things, and it became more and more difficult. What the hell? Something is up on this website. If you want, we can also live debug this together. Something is up. This is a Next.js application. There is a live bug over here. It's causing the website to crash. I'm almost certain what it is, but should we solve this doubt? Should we solve the issue on the Next.js website? Should we see what's up with app.honeysteps.com? Then okay, cool. A lot of people want to do that. All right. So there are let's look at the symptoms to begin with, right? The symptoms are I'm running it on this AWS server, and app.honeysteps.com keeps giving me an error. If I run npm run dev over here, or sorry, let's run npm run start. Why do I have a feeling that it's just out of memory, like space df dash h? No, it has space. Npm run start says no file or directory. .next cd .next. I do see .next. rm-r.next. Feels like someone is injecting, I don't know, deleting our build folder. That's my current guess, based on, because I saw that the same thing a while back. The .next folder isn't there, which is the folder that has the code, the finely bundled code. The folder that gets generated when you run npm run build, becoming empty again and again for some reason. So that's my first guess. Okay, someone is able to inject code somehow into the website and is deleting this folder. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But that's my first guess. Someone also added Sharp, which is an image optimization library, if I'm not wrong. I don't know why. I could be wrong. What is Sharp? Sharp npm. Yeah, image processing. It's usually dangerous adding these libraries because these libraries do well. They have access to files. They're touching your files. They're doing image optimizations. So yeah, let's see. That might be something. I don't think I've pushed. No push has happened to CMS in a while. So this isn't a new change that's breaking things. The last merge happened 4 days ago. Website has been fine for the past 3-4 days. So it's not a new change. It's definitely something old. Or one thing that might happen is the classics API is a little bit so okay. I did this. Now if I go to .next, I see a bunch of things. If I run npm run start, things are fine. Now in a while, I will see this go down. Abhi things are fine. That happens. But why did the build folder go away? Let me start this in the background so I can debug on the side. So I started this in the background. Website is up now. If anyone wants to go to the website, they can. Question is, what causes this next folder to become empty? There is something that's cleaning this again and again. There is something that deletes my build folder. Has anyone seen this in the past? I have never seen this, and I have also not worked with Next in production. But what causes this? Does anyone know? No. Nope. Yes. I mean, you don't have to write no, but if you know, then please tell yes. Cache in AWS. You can use Uptimer robot for monitoring. We already have something that monitors and messages me. It is possible to use Nexus without monorepo. That is correct. Okay. Seems like this is like any questions you want to ask. Okay. Redis, we'll introduce it in 1-200. Let's see. Can we have a locomotive or GSAP video I really want to learn but not find resources. But if we do it, probably at the end, it's like slightly out of syllabus. It's the large build cache, I think. Can you point me to some resource that shares how to fix that? That sounds right. Next auth, you said session is only critical when login but not sign up. So Next.js app, we have a first sign up then login, cookie back. Am I right here? Okay, what I said was next auth is not a user management library. If you go to clerk.com or Firebase auth, they do user management for you. If I go to clerk.com, which is another way to do authentication, they store your user details as well. Next auth is not a user management library. You manage users yourself. It is a session library. It maintains the cookie for you. So if you're creating a sign up page, and we will do this probably tomorrow, you don't really worry about next auth doesn't need to worry about that. You create it yourself. That's what I meant yesterday. Can we answer that? How is backend webhook different from backend diagram? What happened to your voice? My throat is a little off. How is backend webhook different from Paytm backend from diagram? The term webhook, if you understand that, then this will probably be easier. But the high level is a backend. If this is a front end of your application that talks to the backend of your application. This is a full stack application. This is a plain backend. But if you have a backend, Node.js backend, that none of your own services are talking to. I repeat, your front end never talks to this. There is an external company, Goldman Sachs, let's say, that needs to share information with you from time to time. When Goldman Sachs is hitting your backend server, this backend server is called this request is called a webhook request, because you have a way for other people to hook into your database. Other people can put data in your database by sending a request to your backend server. This backend server usually is not hit by these front end servers, which is why these are called like webhooks, and these are separate backend servers from your primary backend. Okay, a lot of questions. Let me pause chat for a bit. Let me start from the bottom here. Okay, so this is going to be question answering with us monitoring the website and seeing if it goes down again. Cool. And then we'll try to call it around 9ish. I think the whole payment feature implemented needs separate offline video. The payment fee, yeah. Let's build a ad hoc backend and not worry about the hot paths. And then the offline video can be on hot paths. And then, as you guys said, front end you guys can do it. Monorepo is good. I'll do a poll and then we'll decide based on the poll. And if the poll is monorepo, I'll bootstrap the monorepo and push. Tomorrow we will, take that initial monorepo and start coding from there. Guide me regarding this error. Let's see. Explain architecture in offline video one more time. I can do that. I can explain the architecture in offline video. Oh. Refresh the page. Okay. User app the tailwind configuration, that looks good. Parsing error. ESLint configuration error in this thing. A lot of people saw this. User app tailwind.config.js. User. Oh, what you can. Oh, sorry. Okay. Is this a JS file? This is a JS file. Can you convert this? You can convert this into a TS file. You can. How does it include file? Either change the list of. So ऐसा करो इस file को exclude कर दो. If you're seeing this error, go to app/user/app/ts config, and in the excludes section, add all the JS files. So post config.config.js, tailwind.config.js. Try adding these two to this thing. A lot of people were seeing this error. So whoever was, can you try this? How do I deploy a Next.js repo natively rather than using Supabase? Well, the way I was doing it right in front of you in the class, right? I got a machine, and on that machine, I'm deploying servers code dhadadad, and doesn't matter if it's a Next.js application or something else. Where did that terminal go? I can't find that terminal, but yeah, go to the beginning of the class when we were debugging in the recording, and you'll find you can deploy an Next.js app anywhere, right? It's just an HTTP server in the end. You have shown your AWS interface with the links multiple times in live class. Is it possible someone can inject malicious code? No, you cannot. It's like if I show you my facebook.com right now, can you inject something there? No, right? unless I show you my cookies, any authentication information, I'll be fine. CI/CD pipelines. Yeah, let's try. We'll do it on an offline video. So this specific project will have CI/CD, which we'll do in an offline video. Explain architecture. I will explain the architecture in an offline video next week. Most probably, whatever we'll try to build some of it today. We didn't arrive anywhere. We'll try some of it tomorrow. And then, in the offline video, I'll start from scratch and we'll build it again. It'll be a really long video, I can tell you that though. How are you going to use a get route and at the same time create a user in slide 8 last point? Should we post? Yeah, that is just to check whether or not things are going in the Prisma database. You can make it a post endpoint, doesn't matter. The goal is to understand, are you able to put data in the database using the Prisma library? If you want to build a merchant application, it will be a lot easier for us using monorepo. Exactly. That is where monorepos will shine, when you have another front end that, needs to do it. I'm glad that you get it. This is the benefit of monorepos. But yes, that is 100% right. App is down again. Okay. Okay, let's see. app.research.com, and it is down. It is not down again. But if I log out and if I log in, if I put my credentials, I saw it break last time when I logged in. So let's just seeing if that does it. Did not do it. And you guys were able to see my credentials probably, which is fine. It's not down right now, unless I'm missing something. Need a bigger project only. We can learn all these things together. It's fine as it's offline. Please do it. Okay. The offline video will have everything. The question is, in this online format, what should we do? Should we just answer questions? Should we, learn something new? That's the question. Error in this thing, cannot find Tailwind CSS. I saw the same error. Did you remember what I did? I did a npm install Tailwind CSS. It is telling you a library isn't present. Rerun npm install Tailwind CSS in that specific folder and you should be fine. Should we check this? Oh हाँ, चलो भाई अब जावेद को देख लेते हैं यार. जावेद काफ़ी टाइम से वेट कर रहा है और $100 की बाउंटी है. दिस इज $100 बाउंटी फ्रॉम जावेद. जावेद देखो, आई एम डूइंग इट इन फ्रंट ऑफ यू. ठीक है, दिस इज योर code. I'm sharing my screen. I'm going to open iTerm. It is not opening. I'm going to open a terminal. And I'm going to go to projects and going to clone your repository in Turbo. Then I'm going to go to the Turbo folder and run npm install. I hope you had all your code in the master branch now, and not in a different branch. For people who need context, there was a bounty in the last class where something was breaking. I don't know why. I gave it as a bounty. Javed was the first one to fix it, and we're seeing if it fixes it or not. I'm unsure because I've been trying to debug this for a while, and if it does work, I would love to know what the fix was as well. It's $100 bounty. The reason I was so bullish on building this because, as I said, this is very similar to building an exchange, so you can build the project in a way where, if you ever want to build a crypto exchange, there's just another module that you have to add that's, not withdrawing to a bank, but withdrawing to a blockchain and not listening to input webhooks from a bank. It's polling and indexing the blockchain. So that's why, this was an interesting project to build. Oh, sorry. CD apps / backend cat package.json. This has tsc-b moment of truth npm run build. This is not the tsc command that you're looking for. तुम्हारे सामने ये हुआ है देखो, and I'm happy to listen to you if you have guide me. What do you think I should do next, Javed? I can. In reply to the TSC issue fix, I also tried the solution and got the issue fix. But if we think running this type of app in prod environment, generally don't have the build scripts in the common folder. So compiling first with TSC, then adding JS exports might not be needed. You generally need to complete app from root. In this case, your fix might not work. Sandeep, sorry, could you elaborate what fix and maybe put it in a Notion doc. There's like too many things. I'll try to read your message one more time. I'll also pause chat for a bit. In reply to the TSC issue, I tried the same solution and issue got fixed. Which solution though? Can you answer? TSC-B? All right, let's see. tsc-b. Even if that does it, that's fine. Found one error, cannot find. This seems fixable. cd dot npm i cd apps front end, back end, tsc-b, cd dot cd packages common, ls cat package.json, at repo /common, exports has a common. This looks right. /dis/index.js wrong. Looks pretty wrong, वैसे. You shouldn't export ./dist.index.js from here. You should export, just the, I guess what you're doing here. It's fine. I understand what you're doing here, but you should not export the final JavaScript from packages. You should what is called transpile packages, and not use the final JavaScript file but the TypeScript file. apps/backend tsc-b, cannot find. Okay, cd packages common, tsc-b over here, or npm run build over here. Good enough. Just okay, cd cd apps backend tsc-b. Well, moment of truth. It did work. But the question is, how did it work? Did you update tsconfig, which is my guess? No, it seems almost exactly the same. Did you update? You did update the common. Oh, that's probably what you did. But I mean, you can still take the Mountie, but you don't want this. Let's see if your change still works. If we do apps/backend. Oh, that's what you were saying, Sandeep Kumar. In reply to TSC issue, I also tried the same solution and the issue got fixed. But if we think of running this type of app in prod, we generally don't have the build script in the common folder. Exactly. You never have a build script. So, okay, Sandeep is probably the one who deserves a bounty here. And you should get one, Sandeep. So $50 to you, sir, and $50 to Javed, because it's a good try. But in the sense, what Sandeep is saying also, and what is the right solution here is, and I don't know the right solution, but the thing that's wrong here is, where are the exports? Sorry, dot cd packages common cat package.json. This is incorrect. You should not export a JavaScript file. You should actually still export, source / what was it, index.js. TS. You should always export the TypeScript files from here, and there are a few reasons for it. Let's see the reason that Sandeep gave. Generally don't have build scripts in the common folder, so compiling code first with TSC and then adding .js exports might not be needed. We generally build complete app in root folder. In this case, your fix might not work. Exactly. So that is 100% true. You do not, most of your packages don't have a build script. If I go to the one that we had here, if you'll open any monorepo and look at whatever UI folder, if you look at UI/package.json, do you see a build script here? No, you never convert this into JavaScript. Your root application imports them, and finally the JavaScript is created directly here. So the fix that you've made it works, but isn't something you should use in production. So let me see if this works now. I replace this back with index.ts, apps/backend, and tsc- let me do a global npm install. Let me delete the dist from packages/common, apps, and what was it, backend, tsc-b. Still worked. There you go. Did not work, right? So I get the fix that you tried to make, but it will not work. I mean, you get the idea, right? You get the point. You cannot do the thing that you did. I mean, you can do it, but you shouldn't do it. So 50-50, because Sandeep also put up a great point, and Javed for the effort, because you did put in a lot of effort to try this. Are there more bounties? There is another bounty if anyone wants, though. We did not reach that point, but at some point in a slide over here, you'll find I asked something. We'll do another $50 into 2 for this one. Try going through this recoil, add recoil to Next.js step, and then you might see this type error. I was also seeing this here. But I guess I figured out why that was. But yeah, if you see this type error, try to fix it. Let me know. If you follow the steps, you should probably see this type error. If you do see this type error, try to fix it and let me know if there's something there. Cool. All right. Let's open chat again. Great effort, and then kudos to Sandeep also. This is good eye, and you also went the extra mile and looked at his code. Check the README for explanation. If you change it to TS, it won't run. I have explained in README. Can you check that? Okay, let's see. I get it won't run, but we need it to run. Or that's why we use ESBuild, because ESBuild works with that. But I will still look at README after I answer a few questions from here. How to use Firebase? It's not too difficult. If it's the first time you're doing, it's probably difficult. I'm not committing anything. We can do an offline video at the very end, maybe. But it's not too difficult to understand. The thing about Firebase is it takes care of your database also, your backend also. Yeah, that's it. You can deploy a front end there if need be. If not, that's fine as well. But it takes care of not just your backend, but also your database, which is why it's so popular. It also gives you something called real-time capabilities, which means if you're building a real-time application like a chat app, you can use it, but you usually shouldn't. You should use something like WebSockets, which we'll learn in 1-200. But that's a high level of Firebase. We can dive deep if need be. Hi Akash here. Okay. Thanks for considering my input. This is insane. In the last wallet app, I use to store money without decimal precision. Please review. User ID, balance number, min 100, amount, math.round, amount into 100. Store the balance as an integer representing small monetary unit for INR, multiply by 100. You created a virtual balance INR schema.get this dot balance 100 to fix 2. This works. You at the Prisma level. Oh, sorry, this is Mongoose. Before you're putting things in the database and after you're getting things from the database, you are multiplying 100, dividing by 100 works. You don't have to store precision anywhere, and your application logic never gets whatever you want to call this, pesas. You always get rupees in your application logic, which is good. Instead of cutting scope, yeah, we can definitely expect offline videos. By cutting scope, I meant cutting scope in a live video. I actually added this and this doesn't work. Oh, this doesn't work. How did you solve this on your machine? Well, I never saw this on my machine. But let's see. I have seen this error in the past. And I don't remember how I fixed it. I just did what the warning was telling me to do. Excuse me. ESLint was configured to run on. Oh, you have to exclude it from the ESLint configuration. So, sorry, my bad. Yeah. ESLint rc.js in packages/UI, or, ESLint rc.js in. There you go. Exclude. Yeah, basically try to exclude it from ESLint config. Figure out how to do that for this Next.js application. Ignore these files, all the JavaScript files, and specifically tailwind.config.js from your ESLint config, and then go from there. In a transaction heavy application, Next.js cost would be tremendous. I answer that. It would be if you are paying per minute or per second. You don't have to do that. You can host it yourself, or as I mentioned, why do you think it's going to be expensive? Do you mean because the time it will take for the request to proceed to happen will be more, and hence you'll have to pay more? Is that the reason? Can you explain that? If a user clicks twice very fast, then wouldn't that put the transaction in queue twice? If we had to add the merchant in the future, you can also cancel. Yeah, can you just elaborate on your question a little bit more? While using cookie-based authentication in Express, I had to configure calls to allow only front-end requests. So why is the same site config needed? Why is the same site config needed? Using cookie-based authentication in Express, we had to configure CORS to allow only the front-end requests. That is correct. So why was same site config needed? Did we add same site, or was it HTTP only? Same site. What was the same site cookie? Did we even explain this? If you introduce the same site value, you declare whether or not a cookie is restricted to the first party or same context. It's helpful to understand it. Did we introduce same site? I don't even remember introducing this in the slides. What was your question again? Integration. So why was same site config needed? it wasn't needed. We did not add same site. I don't at least remember. Can you point me to the code where I added same site? Pretty sure I didn't even introduce this in slides, or I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure though I did not introduce this in the slides. We can just look at the code, right? 100x devs cohort 2. This is the one, I think. No, this one maybe. App API. No, that's weak. 16. There you go. Backend source index.ts. Same. Where do you see same site over here again? I just have this. The course allows that origin. I don't have same site anywhere. Cool. Let's see if there are more questions. I still don't know what we'll do tomorrow, like how we'll structure the class tomorrow so that we're able to build some parts of the project and still not go as slow as we did today. But okay, we'll see that eventually. We'll do a poll. Okay. Javed really wants me to look at the export error. Let's see. While using TSC in the code, we had faced this issue. This is the error, and the root cause is when we run the dev environment. In my case, I was using TS node, which directly runs .ts files. It's not giving me the error. But when you build the project in your TSC, if you look at this.index.js, you'll see an import at the top. Okay. Correct. Which means it is importing directly from the common file. But the issue when you look at the common packages is that packages and see its package.json export, it is putting a TS file which is written ES6 on exactly. That is my point. The question is, why is it importing it from here? The JavaScript file should automatically compile that code here, and it should not be able to require this. What do you think happens when you use ES build? Why does ES build work, or why does TS up work? Why are they able to compile it? Because they're not importing it directly. They bundle that code inside the JavaScript file, right? They don't import things from here. How can you do that in TSC? That is the question. Without, doing what you've done here. Creating the index.js file isn't the solution. Yeah. All right. One question. Another Notion doc. I'm unable to. Oh yeah. I'm not indexjs.com. What are your don't send me your credentials, but I was able to get a different response in posting of the .next cookie. Hey, I was trying to debug the issue, and until now I am getting a different response. URL, still we are unable to log into the app. I think we're able to log into the app. Try logging in using my credentials. Use these. I'll change them after the class, but try logging in using harkira.itr@gmail.com. 1 to 3 random. And as you can see, I was able to log in, right? So yeah, try those credentials. Maybe your credentials are wrong. Unable to log into website. The website is up. So few people are saying this. Can you try with these credentials? And if it works with my credentials, but not with yours, can you send your credentials here? You can eventually change them, but just send them in chat if it doesn't work for you here, and make sure it does work for you here, so that you know your password is right. Please pause the video. I'm back home, so it shouldn't take me more than an hour. Cool. One more Notion doc. TSC straight up transpiles JS, but ES build is a TS to JS builder. That sounds right. 1 second. Notion doc. Excuse me. If someone's authentication is not working on the website, can you just post your credentials here? You can change them eventually. Just post your username and password. It will help me debug what the problem might be. If you're sure your credentials aren't working, can you just post them here? It works in incognito. Credentials मतलब password भी डाल दो यार. Put your password as well. Okay, let's see. Log out. Log in. Let's put the username. Let's put the password. it says error signing in. Let's go to harkira.classics.co.in. Let's log out. Let's try logging in one more time using your credentials. It's already over. It does work here. So we have a very clear bug. You are not able to log in even though your credentials are right. What could be the reason? We need to hit the Apex API and make sure the Apex API works. So there is a login API by Apex. Let's go there. Let's put your credentials over here. Login body. Your email was. What's your email? This thing. I'm assuming you're getting rate limited. Like Apex is rate limiting us or something. Let's see. Username and what's your password? Here's this. Please change your password after the class. And Apex says login successful. Which basically means, login was successful. Why? What can we do? We can basically, so I added some changes, probably is causing this issue. Let's see. Did you change your password recently? Did any one of you change your password recently for whom this is happening? Nope. Okay. A few people did. Most people did not. So that's fine. So what we did was, if you've gone through the Nextauth class, this should be easy to understand. Source slash, where's the auth stuff? App slash API slash Nextauth lib slash auth at slash lib slash auth.ts. This is the code that runs whenever you hit the website. Validate user. Thanks. Thank you. This is the code that runs. So it first checks in the database and compares if everything is right, and if it isn't, then it goes here. Yeah, let's just run it locally and we'll be able to debug it. So the way I would debug, I can try to debug it on the prod website. The problem is if I do that, there are too many logs for me to figure out what caused your error. So let me just run the project locally. So I'm going to open the project locally. I just want to make sure I don't expose the .env file. If I do that, then I'm screwed because this .env file has the production database when I'm running it locally. So I don't want to, if I do that, someone let me know. But the way I would debug it is I would run the project locally, npm run dev. I would go to that auth.ts file. I would try to log in and then see, where is the error coming. I added some logic here recently, so it might be that might be causing it. Let's put your credentials back in here. Let's see. And now I'm going to click on login, and probably doesn't let me log in if I look at it. Oh, it did let me log in locally. Why is it working locally, but it is not working on app.hardexdevs.com? That probably means that website has got rate limited. Yeah, it's not your fault. The good thing is it might just work for you now because your password is in the database now. So yeah, there you go. It did work, but broke everything. And now if I go here, website is down. If I go, is it down for everyone now? Let's see.